The rise in popularity of investing or flipping sports cars solely drives speculative behavior and artificially inflates card prices. Validate this statement or change my mind. So binary and sounds so negative.
What is up, listeners? Welcome back to Fondling Cardboard, a podcast for you, the collector of sports cards. I'm your host, Mike Lakusta, known as the Golf Card Collector, and I've got this series about collectors versus investors debating based on a very biased prompt that I provide. As Jason said in the intro, I definitely took a binary approach to designing this series, and I did that intentionally so that when my guests are talking about the subject, they can speak very firmly about one way or the other. The last thing I was hoping for was a bunch of flip-flopping and saying, well, it depends and there's nuance. What I'm discovering is that there is always nuance, and we're going to launch right into it with Jason of Ginter Gold Fever. He is a Allen Ginter collector. So without further ado, let's hear from him.
Investing and flipping is a factor in inflation for sure, but it's also a factor in exposing new cards and diversifying collections for people who had no idea that these cards existed in the first place, which could, in effect, create new collectors. So I don't personally always invest in my cards because they will never leave my hands. But as an investor myself in other markets, I can certainly appreciate a healthy amount of investing and flipping in the card market.
Woo! Coming hot right out the gate, Jason. Some very good points. I really appreciate the level of grounding that you bring to the conversation, trying to bring both sides together. Actually, not really that. It's more that you're trying to slap me on the wrist for trying to be so binary and so biased about my opinions. So consider myself snapped into shape. But from here on out, we are going to be hearing from much more firm positions from either side. So next up is going to come Dan from Leave the Pin podcast. So let's hear from Dan.
The rise in popularity of investing or flipping sports cards solely drives speculative behavior and artificially inflates card prices. Validate this statement or change my mind. I am not going to change your mind. This is 100% true. I don't think I could have said it better myself. The speculative issue in baseball, in basketball and football around the draft is astronomical. I mean, rookies, when they make their debut in the MLB, for a week to 2 weeks after, if they have a hot first or second game, their prices are through the roof. I mean, their prices start to approach Mike Trout, Aaron Judge levels, Shohei levels, guys like Acuna that are doing this stuff year in and year out, and people have a hot game, and then all of a sudden, everyone jumps on the bandwagon, and a base card goes for $8 to $10. A numbered card goes for 20 to 30. A rookie patch auto goes for hundreds. And then, wouldn't you know it, 2-3 years later, they're bench players, they're role players, they're back in AAA. Yermin Mercedes is a guy that played for the White Sox who opened up something incredible. I'm gonna mess up the stat line, but he opened up with like 11 for 12 in his first 3 games. I mean, it was unheard of. He became the talk of the South Side in Chicago, and then fell off. He's not with them anymore. Went back to AAA, picked up with like 3 or 4 other teams. Never replicated that start. At one point, I sold a numbered base card of his for $55. A card that I got in a pack, which today I checked on eBay and you could get for $1.50. It's absolutely insane. So the investing, quote unquote, and flipping aspect of the hobby, in my opinion, honestly does ruin it. However, I will say that I have definitely benefited from that. But again, I use that money and those funds to then fund purchases of items that I actually enjoy and things that are going to be part of my personal collection for life.
Dan, I really appreciate you sharing some examples from baseball because I think baseball is the sport where speculation most happens. I mean, it happens in all sports, but that's what baseball prospects are best known for. So before I get into sharing any more of my own thoughts, let's kick it over to Paul Hickey of NoOffSeason.com and the Sports Card Strategy Show to give us some thoughts from the other side of things, from the investor mindset.
Nah, you got it all wrong here, man. You got it all wrong. Flipping might be being blamed, being the scapegoat for things about the market that collectors don't like. But I'm going to tell you, all successful flippers do are pick the right card for the right player at the right time. That's it. It's all about picking the right card for the right player at the right time. At nooffseason.com, we have guidelines. We use multiple guidelines to put together strategies, and we use the strategies to execute plays. With this kind of foresight, we can do things like buy a top baseball prospect during a time when his cards are down, and then we can sell that card upon call up. We're not speculating at all. We know that the top prospect eventually will get the call up, and all we have to do is time our buying and selling so that we buy in advance of the call up and then sell during the hype of the call up. Same thing with a college football prospect. The right card would be an example of a Bowman Chrome first prospect auto for both of these examples. Bowman U for college football, and Bowman draft or Bowman baseball for the baseball prospect. So we're just picking the card that the collector cares most about. We're buying when it's low, and we're transacting when there's a lot of hype around it. We don't control when the hype is. We don't artificially inflate the prices of the cards. We just simply time the market using the right card for the right players. So I fail to see how flipping can be the scapegoat or can be to blame for speculative behavior or especially artificially inflating card prices. I don't understand how that even applies to flipping at all, to be honest with you. Again, successful flippers are simply understanding the market and the cards that collectors and others deem desirable. And then we're just simply acquiring them for a lower price than what we're selling them for. And we're not speculating at all because we never buy a card without a selling marker in mind. And those are principles that people can learn at nooffseason.com through our guidelines, strategies, and plays. So somewhere along the line in the last few years, collectors got pissed off at flippers for some reason. But really, all successful flippers are doing are paying attention to what collectors want, acquiring cards at one point in time and selling them at another point in time when the successful flippers know that the cards will go up in value organically based on hype rises in the overall sports market.
All right, Paul. I really appreciate you sharing an opinion that I might not share, but bring some well-rounded conversation to the podcast. Because one of my New Year's resolutions for 2024 is to not just live in an echo chamber. It's to seek out opinions that might differ from my own, not only to create a well-rounded conversation, but also to see if anything can change my mind and bring me new ways of thinking. So on this particular topic, you said that all successful flippers do is pick the right card for the right player at the right time. And you know, there's this thought that collectors are just frustrated that when a player gets hyped, they can't get that card for a reasonable price anymore. And that way of thinking really creates this model of stocks of players and buying and selling stocks as the player is hyped or performs well, or whatever. And that just goes completely against the collector's mindset who doesn't want to sell off their collection when the time is right, whereas flippers take advantage of those moments. Collectors want to accumulate by nature. And so they want to accumulate their favorite players both when they're high and they're low. And so when the market is dictating prices are high, it can be frustrating. But when flippers and investors stimulate that activity and create, in my belief, a speculative bubble, that's when people can get really frustrated. And I think that, Paul, you have a lot more in common with Dan, myself, James, who's going to be coming up, than we are giving off here. I think that we all believe there is room for everybody in the hobby, but it's prospecting that can cause a lot of frustration. A speculative bubble is a spike in an asset's value to an unsubstantiated level. And it's fueled by irrational speculative activity that's not supported by the fundamentals. And in trading cards, the fundamentals are collectors. It's people who want to own the card and utilize the value of fondling it, collecting it, organizing it, cataloging it, completing a set, having it as a souvenir, a nostalgic artifact or token of some period in their own life. And when there's a flurry of activity around a particular player, even if that's based on fundamentals of investing, it completely disrupts the fundamentals of the hobby. Now, Paul, I know there's probably lots of holes in what I just said, so hit me back and let's talk about this more. And for those listeners who have financial and investment backgrounds, tear me apart in the DMs and comments. All right, so the last guest we're going to hear from today is Mr. James Peacock, who is a friend of mine and a member of the Golf Cards and Memorabilia Facebook group. And James is a through and through collector, so let's see what you got to say.
I don't like to have to pay more for something just because people that aren't passionate about it are getting their hands in it to make a quick buck. I don't think that's right. Again, like I said before, I'm all about prices going up naturally if there's a huge flood of collectors in the hobby, aka as golf gets more popular, and social media grows it. I could see the hobby growing naturally, but that's only if people actually love the cards, love the game of golf. They love to build sets, or they love to have personal collections of people that they follow, or they like to hope that they're going to play well, or they just like their personalities. All that stuff I love, but I would just hate for people to, I don't like the posts in our Facebook groups that are like, hey, I don't collect golf cards, but I have this amazing Tiger rookie that I pulled. What's it worth? And you can tell they were just ripping boxes or just opening up boxes on the ePack Upper Deck website just as like a way to gamble, or just as a way to get that quick high or a quick fix. So not a big fan of that. I think it doesn't really do a lot for the hobby except for raise prices. But I would say, like you said here in the prompt, validate this or change my mind. I validate it 100%. And it's probably my biggest complaint within the sports card collecting hobby, and then specifically golf too, because that's all I collect. So luckily, I think golf, since it's smaller, that it's not as big of an issue. But even just within our big Facebook group that, we're active in, so much of the posts are value related, and there's very little posts from like me or you, Mike, or people like Brent or John that are genuinely just collecting and they're building sets, and they have these amazing collections that we're not, looking up the value every day, and we're not trying to, make a dollar from it. So I think that's important. And again, if people are doing that, that's great. I go for it. It hurts people that are just in it for the enjoyment. And then some people argue, hey, if everyone's prices go up, doesn't that mean that you now have more assets that are worth more? But no, because that also assumes you have to sell them and get rid of them. And that also means if you wanted to buy more cards, everything else is going to be, expensive as well. I kind of like how golf is still in this world where I still think it's extremely undervalued. So to me, almost every card I see, I want it and I need it in my collection because I think it's so affordable, and it means so much to me because I love looking at it and I love completing my goals and my sets and all of that stuff. So I'm going to keep buying and collecting until it becomes like unaffordable to me, and then I can narrow down my scope of sort of what I want to do. But I actually love the fact that golf is sort of a little bit under the radar for the value sake. I would love for it to grow over time so we can meet new people and we can trade more and it could be a little bit more of an active community. But the fact that it's a little bit left to the side makes it a lot easier for us to, get more bang for our buck.
James, I totally vibe with what you're saying there. Just like you, I can't accept higher prices for the cards that I want. And I think that's the concise point that you were making, is that collectors don't want to pay more, but it didn't address the artificially increasing prices of flippers and investors. And that's kind of the main point here that I know Paul was defending. So I wouldn't necessarily say that we have totally defended the position. And then at the end, you even went on to say that golf is an undervalued sports card category and that we still get a good bang for our buck. But we all remember what happened back in 2021 when Upper Deck Artifacts released. I'll share a story of a card that was of a rookie who was hyped, was ridiculously high priced, and the bubble burst. It burst from the whole market. It burst for this player. And with that, let's get into the card of the week. The card of the week spotlight is on a pair of the 2021 Upper Deck Artifacts Matthew Wolff Artifacts Aurum signatures. And I really liked Matthew Wolff, and he's actually probably my favorite golfer other than Tiger Woods. And I'm probably one of the very few people in the world to say that. And I say that as a realist. I'm one of the very few Matthew Wolff card collectors, if not the only one. I do know there's a Matthew Wolff fan page on Instagram, so go check that guy out. And so there's definitely fans out there. So the reason this is the card of the week, there's a few reasons. I definitely have a huge Matthew Wolff collection, and I definitely want to start featuring more of these cards because some of them are absolutely incredible cards. And collecting a player who is down in the dumps in terms of pricing, but still plays fantastic golf, means I can collect some of the biggest, baddest cards that I would never be able to afford for someone like Tiger Woods or any of the hot rookies these days, like Colin Morikawa or the younger guys, Victor Hovland, Scotty Scheffler, who don't actually even have cards yet. But anyways, the Aurum signatures is an interesting one. So this one really caught my eye because it was featured on the original announcement for 2021 Upper Deck Artifacts Golf. And that announcement was so exciting for golf card collectors because it was the first card set in 7 years, since 2014. And Matthew Wolff was a very strong up-and-coming rookie at the time. He won, I believe, within his first 3 starts on the PGA Tour. And he was just coming off of a massive national college championship win. So he was on the right trajectory. In fact, Colin Morikawa, Bryson DeChambeau, they were some of the big names, and they all ended up in a bit of like a playoff. Or no, it wasn't a playoff. They were on, Bryson finished up 18 with an eagle to take a single stroke lead. And so it was Colin Morikawa and Matthew Wolff in the final pairing. And basically, Matthew Wolff drained like a 25-foot putt. Maybe it was even longer than that for eagle to just outright win the tournament. And that was a big turning point for me as a Matthew Wolff fan, because he proved that someone with such a crazy swing like him can be a winner on tour. And we definitely had high hopes that maybe he'd end up with a career like Jim Furyk, with piling up some PGA wins. And he hasn't quite turned out that way yet, but he's still young, like early to mid 20s, not even 24, 25 yet. So anyways, back to the card. These Aurum cards are interesting. So they're like a gold foiled card, and it's very hard to take pictures of these because the gold foiling is only really illuminated in the right lighting. So if you look at it face on, it actually looks very dark, but once you turn it sideways, it starts to glow with a very beautiful golden shimmer. So you don't see a lot of Aurum cards shown off on social media for that reason, but in hand, they're very nice cards. Now, the Aurum signatures are autographed, so Artifacts, of course, has sticker autographs, but I love the cards nonetheless. The Aurum signatures are serial numbered out of 99. They are such a simplistic design, just gold and black. And it's funny, when I look at this picture of Matthew Wolff, he's finishing a swing, and there is these clouds behind him. And it makes me think of, I don't know, almost like a horror movie or like an alien invading the earth kind of vibe. And Matthew Wolff is just standing there ferociously holding the club above his head, kind of defending the world. I know this is ridiculous for me to say, but that's just what the picture makes me think of and feel. And yeah, so I love it. On the back, it basically just certifies the autograph of Matthew Wolff. And that's that with the Card of the Week Spotlight. I will be getting to Matthew Wolff as a super collector in a future episode, so look out for that one. Well, let me know what you thought of today's episode and just about this debate series in general. I'm going to throw out the topic for next week with the same contributors. Should the primary focus of collecting be on the long-term value of cards or the enjoyment and appreciation of the cards themselves? You can connect with myself as well as all my guests on Instagram. Mine is at The Golf Card Collector. The podcast Instagram is at Fondling Cardboard. Jason is at Ginter Gold Fever. Paul is at Sports Card Strategy. James is at James Peacock. And Dan is at Leave the Pin. And Dan has a great podcast. I recommend you check it out if you like golf in any shape or form. That wraps it up for this week. I can't wait to talk to you next week.